everyone doing today? You had a good day so far? Yeah, it's been a long one, but it's good, you know, lots of good stuff. Welcome to my talk. Let's see if I can get my stuff to work. There we go. Okay, so while I was prepping for this talk, I read this thing that said, if you tell your audience what they're about to hear, they're more likely to engage in the process. So I want to tell you a little bit about what you're about to hear today. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to talk to you about what I want to share with you today, who I work for, what kinds of challenges my organization faced when working on this project. I want to talk about the dream of delivering secure resources in a pipeline. I want to talk to you about my Automagic tool set, which you guys probably already use some of the components today. And then I want to go over like a visual aid. So we're going to do like a kind of a technical demo. I'm just going to kind of show you some stuff. Unfortunately, I can't do a full demo. It's going to be kind of long. And then I'll take your questions. Let's start. So hi, my name's Ben. I live in Maine, which is kind of northeast from here. I have a background in operations. I've worked in a whole bunch of different roles as like a system administrator and application analyst, things like that. I've been in DevOps teams. I'm a lazy person too. So I love to automate things, and hopefully that's probably why you guys are here today. And there's my credentials, not credentials, but my contact information if you need to get in touch with me. Another little thing about myself, I love open source software, follow a lot of projects, really into the Prometheus project. Anybody following that right now? Oh yeah, it's good stuff, right? All right. I'm a cat person. I love food and travel. There's a picture of me in Paris not too long ago. All right, let's move along. So here's what I want to share with you guys today. Security is more important than ever. Now I know it's a cliche, right? But it's true. I mean, think about it. In the last few months, you've seen so many things on the news, I'm sure. There's been data breaches, exploits, all kinds of just terrible stuff. There's always been some sort of like corporate, emergency or something terrible that's been, happening to organizations. And security, in my mind, is everybody's job. Does anybody know anything about SecOps, or what they call it these days? Yeah? Okay, yeah. Anybody doing SecOps? No, kind of, yeah. So SecOps is basically the culture where, in DevOps, you have your developer teams and you have your operations teams, and they work really well together. Basically, a SecOps sort of culture is where all three groups work together. The security team becomes less of a bad guy and more of a collaborator. So I'm actually a SecOps engineer for my company. If you're not promptly patching and hardening your systems, you're going to run the risk of ending up on the news, like Equifax, for example. Their exploit really kind of came about by just not patching their systems. It was Apache Struts, I think. And you really don't need to be an expert to patch your systems and like harden your infrastructure. It's really not hard. You don't need a SecOps engineer. You don't need fancy, expensive tools to do this work, and you're probably already using these tools already. So I work for a company called BlueTarp Financial Services. We're located in Portland, Maine. We were established in 1997, and we're a credit management services provider. Basically what we do is we help large retailers and small retailers. Basically, we back up their credit management system. It's a service, they pay us, that's more or less what it is. And we have a diverse software offering that we give to people, and we cover like collections and all that good stuff. So we really help out people with that kind of thing. And BlueTarp recently struck up a deal with a really large retailer. About last year, I think, is when it actually happened. And we're actually seeing a lot of explosive growth beyond just these huge partnerships. Our software and service offerings have actually required us to become PCI compliant in certain domains. So that's actually new for us. Since 1997, we never needed to take credit cards until now. So it really forced us to kind of take a look, at what we're doing. Our development teams, they didn't really think too much about security. And our operations teams, they patched stuff, when they could. But we really needed to start thinking about not only how to become PCI compliant, but we also wanted to think about our security framework and how to be compliant with that. And we want to do that in a way that doesn't tax operations or development teams, but works with them, in a very integrated way. So the dream of actually delivering these services automatically. So when we were kind of thinking about this, we wanted to build hardened computing resources. Now, one of the use cases that we have is we wanted to deliver appliances. So our software will run in our data centers, our clouds, if you'd like, but we would also deliver you virtual appliances that you can run it in your own cloud or your own data center. So we wanted to create a system where we could build hardened resources, and those could be microservices, or they could be a legacy image or the appliance that we do. And we want to do that continuously, and just continuously, more or less whenever we ever needed that to happen, whenever there was a zero-day exploit, whenever there was something that we needed to address rather quickly. The second thing that we really wanted is we wanted to audit resources while they were being built. So we didn't want to allow the resources to actually enter in the environment if they were non-compliant. So we wanted to run scans that showed if it was PCI compliant or NIST compliant or whatever security framework that you adhere to, and we didn't want those things going all the way through to production, as sometimes they do. And 3, we wanted to continually enforce the states, right? We wanted to audit deployed resources, and we wanted to trigger actions. So if something became non-compliant or maybe a firewall rule changed or something like that, we would actually want to enforce the state and make sure it's back to its original state. Not eliminating drift, more or less, what a lot of people are doing with Salt today. And we wanted to automate it, all of it. We got better things to do, guys, like refilling coffee and picking out a cookie cake for Deborah in finance or something. So it occurred to me, so I've been working with development teams, and I have in the past, and these sort of processes are actually really already being accomplished by software developers. So you think about the pipeline of delivering artifacts and software, CI/CD, more or less. And these kinds of processes already exist, and we wanted to leverage those same processes. And we wanted to do that in a pipeline, something that we could kind of monitor, and we could segment pieces off to different teams and different groups. So the tool set that we decided on, the first one's kind of obvious. We use SaltStack. SaltStack is something I've been familiar with for about 3 years. I've been using it at a couple different companies. And basically what I really like SaltStack as is a configuration management tool. And I like it as a sort of a command runner, something that we can run commands on, or again, apply states and improve that, excuse me, make sure that the states are, the way they ought to be. The second tool that we decided on was Packer. Does anyone use HashiCorp tools in here? Wow, lots of people. Anybody familiar with Packer? Oh yeah, okay, good, good. So we decided on Packer because, as you probably know, and for those that don't, it's an automated builder of images, and it's agnostic. So we can actually build images across platforms. We could build an image in our data center, or we could build an image in our Azure cloud, or our Google cloud, or our Alibaba cloud, if you have one of those. Does anyone have an Alibaba cloud? Yeah? No? Oh, wow. Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, we should talk afterwards. I want to know a little more of that. The third tool that we use is Jenkins, right? Everybody probably is familiar with Jenkins, and we use Jenkins version 2. If you're familiar, I mean, the version 2 actually really helped the pipeline job really get polished. And we like to use it for, again, software deployment and development and building artifacts. But we also, we're using it in the sense of like an operational thing as well. So we have operations teams using Jenkins to do operational tasks. And the last two, I think they're kind of cousins, but they're different tools. OSCAP is OpenSCAP. Anybody familiar with that tool? Yeah. yeah, yeah. So OSCAP more or less is a system that allows you to basically audit like a CentOS box or just any Linux box, more or less. You'll basically grab a template off the net, or you can write your own template, and it will check against those rules and just make sure that it's, you know, it's audited and reports are like coming through as needed. And I'll show you an example of a report. Those are really great, by the way. And then Nikto, which is like a Perl-based application. And what that does is it actually scans for common vulnerabilities. So we wanted to kind of like build our appliances, you know, make sure that they're like audited, and we wanted to scan them for common vulnerabilities. Okay. So we decided, again, like we're going to do this in a whole pipeline, and there's a few steps in order for this pipeline to actually kind of come about. First and foremost, right, whenever you want to start something in Jenkins, you need to trigger it, right? So builds are triggered manually or automatically, depending on like what you want to do. Like if there's something that you could like send it a SQS message if you wanted to. There's really no limit on what you could do for triggering. It's incredibly flexible. The next step would be to build. So we use Packer to build the resources in the cloud environment of our choosing, and we use SaltStack to configure the image. So Packer, more or less, right, it will spin up a new instance in your environment, and then it's going to apply a masterless state against that. So you may have learned about that today. And then the next step we would go to is scanning. So once we apply all of the states, and you're getting like we're not getting non-zero errors back from that, and the states are looking as we expect them, we run an OSCAP scan on that. And we just want to make sure we have actually a customized template that we use, and we just, you know, we scan it, make sure that it meets the requirements, and it's sort of a pass-fail thing. So even if it's like one thing, it's going to fail. Not finally, but the next step, rather, is we construct. So once the image has actually been packed and scanned, we actually start building out a production-like infrastructure. So like if it was a set of web servers, we put like a load balancer up and a bunch of servers. We would do that, again, with whatever like cloud agnostic tool that you want to use or specific. We like Terraform because it's, again, it works great. The same workflow across all the platforms there. Our next step is we would run a Nikto scan across that. So we would just, again, make sure that it's built up, run the scan against that, and then we would check for common vulnerabilities. You know, what are the robots checking for, you know, on a daily basis as they scan our servers? We would want to know, and basically what we'll do is we'll have a baseline, actually, of, because I don't think you can probably avoid all of the common vulnerabilities. Like there are some things that you're just going to have. In this case, we have a baseline, and we basically do a diff on those two. Like if it's not meeting the baseline, we would actually go ahead and just like kill the job and make sure that things don't go into production. If the Nikto scan passes, we then transition to a Packer promotion where we use Packer just simply to spin up a new image and put it in sort of like a prod accessible environment for consumption. In the case of so I use primarily Google Cloud. There's like a neat little concept where you can actually set like a family of images and then promote a new image and depreciate old ones. So it's really easy to cycle them out. And that's what we would do. We would cycle the old. More or less, like, it's kind of up to like the development teams and of course operations to when they want to do that. But it's essentially like a deploy, because in this whole stream of processes, we would also load an artifact. So you would have like again a whole appliance that would be cycled out whenever we had the ability to do that. And then the next step isn't really part of the pipeline, but what we do is we enforce states and scan on the new instances. So it's good that they're nice now, but you know, what about a week from now? You know, mid-sprint release. So what we do is we, you know, run high states on them to make sure that there are certain firewall rules that are coming in. And again, we're running audits and common vulnerability scans on those continuously. So I don't really have a full demo, but I just wanted to show you, again, what an audit looks like from OSCAP for those who are not familiar with it. And then I also wanted to show you more or less what our pipeline kind of looks like. So we'll go and do that now. All right. I had to restart my computer. Let's see here. All right. So first and foremost, this is Jenkins. Anybody use Blue Ocean already? Anybody? No? No? Yeah. I like it. Isn't it nice? It's like much better. So anyways, this is basically our pipeline. It's super simple, guys. It's a basic Jenkins job that runs. Oh, go ahead. Oh, can you see? You want me to? Okay, no problem. Yeah, give me a second. Yeah, what was that? Right. Yeah, so we have logging on our instances, right? So if it is actually responsible for, like if a person is responsible for whatever reason, right? Like a developer doing some cowboy stuff in prod, right? We would know about that. We actually have sort of an extensive Elasticsearch infrastructure, and we have eyes on that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. We don't want to actually patch systems. We want to torch them and replace them with new patch systems. So we're not going to have instances where people are patching on the fly, and we're definitely not going to have people where they're just like, making changes. Yeah. Oh, I don't, more or less. We like to try to transition our data services to like managed services if at all possible. So we like to minimize that. And of course, you can't really do this with databases. There's a whole ginger, touch that you need for that kind of stuff. Go ahead. You had a question? Yes. In some cases, yes. Yep. No. Oh, gosh, no. Yeah, why would you? They have the ability to look at the logs, right? But developers shouldn't have the ability to access production environments. I shouldn't have the ability to access production environments. In an emergency case, like we'll have a break glass kind of procedure. But again, we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So yeah, more or less, this is the pipeline. You can go to like a branch here and run a build. And this is like a super duper skeleton version of what we currently do. But if you look at this, more or less, again, pipeline of tasks. Build an image, build the infrastructure, update Nikto, scan, run. We actually run sort of like a combination of nmap and Nikto scans, which is kind of fun. We delete the infrastructure, and then we promote the image. So and each step is really simple. Like, again, you don't have to be an expert to set this up. These are, like, you can do as little as Bash and PowerShell for these kinds of things. It doesn't have to be too complicated to build this. And I'm going to show you an OSCAP evaluation report. Yeah, so I wanted to show you a failed one. And basically what we do here is we would actually get these reports delivered on a Saltmaster on a sort of a frequent basis, or we would just kind of park them on the actual host. Here you can see it's again super simple. It tells you if you failed or you passed. It's got how many you passed more or less, and you can go through and kind of sort and look at what you missed. Like here, for example, we didn't install aid, right? I don't know who would want to, but yeah, so here, again, it gives you some detail. And the really nice thing about OSCAP is that you can run this from the command line where you can have it automatically remediate stuff if you feel courageous and you don't want to look at that stuff. But they also have remediation scripts. So if you don't really know exactly what you're supposed to do, but you kind of understand the concept, this just gives you a really quick exit into fixing the problem. So that way your auditors are happy and you have more or less, a secure system. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. All right, so what now, right? So I talked about this earlier. Basically, you don't have to have a Saltmaster, right? And in some cases, you probably shouldn't, right, depending on what you're actually running. But I really like using a Saltmaster because the Saltmaster can, again, enforce those states and make sure that there's, it's working as intended. And we would get alerted if it, failed for whatever reason. We would get alerted if it changed anything for any reason. Like, you would definitely want to know if something changed. And you can do that through, again, the really robust controls through SaltStack, where you can trigger alerts, you can trigger actions, you can orchestrate. There's a lot of opportunities to do some really interesting stuff there. And then finally, what we would do here is we would just continually run our scans, right? So, we might not want to do this every hour, or every day, but we might want to do this every week, right? We want to ensure that we have artifacts that are proving that we're compliant with certain things. And that's really important for certain levels of compliance for certain systems. These reports are actually delivered to a Saltmaster. I like to sync them with cloud storage in that particular environment, so we have them in a kind of like a centralized place. And then if scans come back non-compliant, we're going to see how, where, and when. That's going to be tied to logging. We're going to have some pretty good intelligence on that. Go ahead. Yeah, so we would use something, again, like we're using OSCAP right now to basically test a set of rules. And those are customized templates. That kind of concept on writing OSCAP stuff is, or SCAP rather, is kind of complicated. Probably not worth going into right now. But there are some like pre-generated templates that you can start with, and you can kind of edit them down too. So you can kind of reach your accepted level if you have something like that. Yes, precisely, yeah. Yeah, so we can, again, define what is right. Like, you guys might not want to run like a NIST standard in your environment. That's okay. You can pick and choose the things that you want to secure. I would recommend sticking to a security, framework, especially if you have, resources that would impact you negatively, if they were, breached or there's a problem with them. Especially, again, this is a great system for auditors because they want to see the paperwork. It's nice that you have it secured, but show me, right? So you're probably thinking, or maybe you're not, I don't know. So Ben, if I put all this stuff in, will I be totally secure? And this is probably a lot of work for some people, right? Setting up a system like this, running pilot systems, and seeing this go into your environment. No. Here's the thing. It doesn't make you secure at all. It makes you better off, right? So in a recent study, there was over several years and several hundred data breaches. Basically, the article was more or less saying that 85% of the time that people had data breaches is just because they didn't patch their software. And I mean, if you think about it right now, is there something in your environment that you don't know is patched? And those critical vulnerabilities are like something that I think a lot of startups don't even think about sometimes. If you're running a NoOps team or like a DevOps team, maybe you're too busy trying to churn out those features. Maybe the enterprise doesn't understand that you need to secure the environment. That is a reality, unfortunately, for some people. And like I said, you're going to be better off. You're going to have common exploits remediated, right? You're going to know if those are actually remediated. You'll know if you're susceptible to common exploits. And you'll have artifacts showing that. So, you might not be in a case where like people are auditing you now. But again, if you ever needed to do so in the future, this is a good starting point. And if you ever need to urgently deploy something like the ZeroDay, again, it's just kind of a process where you trigger the action. You click a button, you build, you start testing, and then you roll it out to prod eventually. So this kind of wraps up more or less what I had for you guys today. In conclusion, security is more important than ever. Yeah, that cliche. Remember, security is everybody's job. Yeah. So that's something that I really wish that people would realize. Security is everyone's job. So SaltStack in conjunction with other tools can help you deliver that pipeline of secure resources, right? And SaltStack is really easy to learn. It's really easy to pick up, and it's really fast. That's why I think it's such a great choice for most organizations. If you're curious, I set up a repo with today's demo, just a little kind of a skeleton project for you that you can take a peek at. I'm at Ballin. It's awful, I know. It was my nickname at one shop because there were too many Bens, so they had to call me something else. It was Ballin. I didn't really like it, but it ended up leaking into my GitHub account. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm actually writing a series of tutorials on how to customize OSCAP templates. So that's really, I think is really interesting because there's not a lot of content, I think, out there that's really easy. It kind of assumes you're at a high level already. And if you have any questions beyond this session, just drop me a line. I'm at hello@benjaminisaacallen.com. I'm on LinkedIn at benallenit. And I will take your questions if you have any. Go ahead. I'm sorry, what? HubbleStack. No, we didn't consider HubbleStack at that time, no. And for this use case, again, you don't have to use OSCAP. You can use something else. And as much as I said you don't need those fancy, expensive tools, there are some reasonably priced ones, which I left out that we use. We like Nessus. We use the Tenable.io product. Those tie in great. They have awesome APIs. You can just link this right into your process and into your SaltMaster if you wanted to. Cool. Nice. Yeah. So we're doing more or less like a little bit of a hackier version of that, you know. So, any other questions? Yes. Did you say torch? Oh, yeah, right. So, yeah. So at that point, we would more or less work with that vendor to make sure that it's updated. Yeah, right. There's and it depends. Like it depends on who your client is, right? They might let you into their cloud environment, or they might not, depending. Like you have certain like financial institutions. They don't want to let anybody outside vendor like into their stack of resources, or at least I've found. Any other questions? No? All right. So I'll let you guys go that's a little early. I'd like to thank you again. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so again, I'd like to thank you so much for coming in, just kind of talking a little bit, listening to me talk. I appreciate it. Thank you.